Hi everybody, it's Tristan here from Evolve EdTech and welcome to another Jamboard video as part of our Jamboard series where we're going through our 20 Jamboard templates as part of e-collection number 1. And today we are up to one of my favorite resources and templates. It's the positives, negatives, and questions table. So I'm going to show you that one, show you some examples, give you some ideas on how you could use it in your classroom, whether you're doing it collaboratively together or whether you're going to get students to work on it in teams or pairs or individually. It's a great resource that you can use in your learning environment. So we'll go and have a look at that in a second. But welcome. Hopefully you are a returning viewer and you've been watching all of these videos, looking at our templates so that you get a bit of an idea of what they are or how you could use them if you're new to Jamboard or you're just curious about some of these templates, they're new to you. I hope they've been really useful. If they have been and you haven't done this yet, even though you have been asked, I would love it if you went and subscribed to our YouTube channel, Evolve EdTech, to help me continue to create these wonderful videos for you. They do take a lot of time. I am a full-time teacher as well, so this is a little side project. So if you would subscribe to my channel and share it with your family and friends and your colleagues, I'd be eternally grateful. So please, please, please help me out. All right, today we are looking at the positives, negatives, and questions table and template that I have available on my website. So let's go to my website. I'll show you where to grab the templates if you don't know, if you're not a returning viewer. So if you head to evolveedtech.com, and it is just scrolling along the bottom of the slide here. So please, evolveedtech.com. You'll be able to access all 20 of my templates. They're all free. They'll be for free forever, and they're there for you to access. So just head up the top to the Evolve Resources tab. Scroll down to Jamboard, and we're going to go to e-collection number 1. And this is where you'll find the 20 templates from e-collection number 1. Now you'll see that they are in an accordion style, so that obviously when you open one, you can only open one and look at one at a time, so that it's not a little bit overwhelming and confusing about what you're looking at, and you don't get a little bit lost per se. They are also in alphabetical order, so if you're looking for something specific and you know your alphabet, which I hope you do, you'll be able to go through and find those there. So today we are looking at the positives, negatives, and questions template, which is one of my favorite. This is where we get students to provide ideas that are positive, negative, and any questions that they may have. And I love this particular template, and I've used it a lot in my teaching career, but now I've leveled it up with the Jamboard version just here, which I'm going to show you today. So this could be used together as a class. You can use it individually. You can have students work in teams or groups to come up with ideas and to fill this out and to see what they are thinking. That's more what it's about. It's what they're thinking and getting their ideas down so that we can all share and we can all collaborate and we can all work out what's common in our knowledge, what we thought was interesting or positive, some of the negatives that we discovered, and any questions that we have together. So let's go and have a look at one of these templates today. I might go and have a look at the blue one. Now, as I've mentioned before, you will need to make a copy of these templates. I'll show you how to do that. It's really simple. You can click on the templates to download them, but if you click on the links, it's going to open it up in your current tab. So if you want to go back and download another one of those Jamboard templates, you're going to have to either press the back button or you're going to have to type evolveedtech.com into the Omnibox or the address bar. So my suggestion is that we right-click and we open in a new tab, and it's going to open that template in a brand new tab in our browser. So rather than opening it in our current window, it's going to open in a new tab. Now, as I've mentioned, we are going to need to make a copy. So to make a copy of this template, all we need to do is head up into the top right-hand corner. You'll see a blue share button will come live in a second. We're not using that. we're going here to these 3 magical dots. And I call them magical because they provide us with so many other functions. So if we click on those 3 dots, we can scroll down here to make a copy. All right, so we're going to make a copy of that template. It's going to put it into our workspace, into our drive, so that we can reuse it over and over again. All right, so that is there for you to access. All right, I will tell you before we do get into having a look at the template itself, and I mention this in every single video that I've created about duplicating. So you can actually duplicate the frames, which is this particular canvas in Jamboard. It's called a frame. We can duplicate them up to 20 times to create a jam here that our students could use. But what we need to make sure we do is if we want to duplicate the frame, we really need to duplicate it before we start using it, because once we duplicate, it duplicates everything that's inside the frame. So if we've already got stuff in there, it's going to duplicate that, which means you have to delete and delete and delete and delete and delete. So it's a bit inefficient to duplicate after you've used it. So to duplicate our frames, we head up to our expand our frame bar up here. You'll see our 3 magic dots again. We just click on those and then we duplicate. Okay, so you can just keep duplicating as many times as we would like here to create another duplicated edition of our template. All right, really simple, really easy to do. And then we can move through by clicking on our arrows here if we've got different templates that we'd like to go through with the students. So with this particular template here, positives, negatives, questions. So I get the students to complete this as they're doing something. So if we're watching a documentary, if we're reading a text, if we're listening to something, if we're exploring a particular idea, I get the students to fill this out. I get them to fill it out individually, and then I get us to complete it together collaboratively to see the ideas that we've had and see if there's anything that's really common between the positives, the negatives, and the questions sections of this table. So you could possibly get your students to complete this. So they could go in, they could pop some the sticky notes into the relevant sections as they're going. They might be using the text box option to take their notes as they're listening to something or watching something or doing something. So those options are there if you want to do it individually. If you want to do it in pairs or groups or teams, whatever your particular lesson requires. As I said, I do like the students to do it individually or in groups and pairs, and then we come back together and we do it together. When we do it together, we could do a couple of things. I could do it myself, and I could be getting the students to provide ideas to me, and I'd probably put them in here as sticky notes. I do love the sticky note. I just think it looks really cool. So we could put that in there, or we could actually share this with the students and get them to be putting in their own positive, negatives, and questions. So there's a couple of things that we could do here. Now, with the positives, obviously we're looking for positive ideas, interesting ideas that we have taken from the text, okay? So it doesn't mean we have to talk about something that was positive in the text, but it's something that we found positive, something we found interesting. Same with the negatives. When I get my students to complete this, I say it doesn't have to be something negative from the text. It could be something that you perceive as being negative towards an outcome or an idea or a perception. So just need to make sure that you're very clear with your students what each of these columns mean and what you're expecting from them when they are completing it. The questions column, I always get them to give me between 5 to 10 questions, and I generally ask them to come up with these questions during or after the particular text that we're looking at, the movie, the documentary, the audio, etc. So any questions that they have whilst we're completing the activity, or any questions they have afterwards, after they've consumed the text or the idea. So what do they believe? What do they think? What do they want to know more about? So that's what I get them to do with that one. Now, I always specify when I get students to complete this, how many ideas I would like per column. So for my positives and negatives, I probably would say, let's do a minimum of 10. So I want you to get at least 10 ideas, 10 positives or interesting points, 10 negatives And then my questions normally about 5 to 10, just it depends on the students that you have in your class. So I set the minimums just so that I know students are going to do something. Without that, they're in free fall land and they have no idea what to do. So that's what I do for this one. I've used this many, many times in the past. I've used it manually to create beautiful displays in the classroom, and I've recently done that in the last few weeks, actually, with one of my classes, my senior classes, and it was fantastic. But obviously, when you create stuff, children destroy things in classrooms if, it's not nailed down. So even though it looked really pretty, I had beautiful post-it notes, laminated cards, students touched them, they ripped them, they damaged them, and it was disappointing. So if I was to do this again, I'd probably go and use Jamboard to create a digital version of my PNQ, my positive, negatives, and questions table, and get students to respond to the table for the text digitally rather than using the good old post-it note. So leveling up and moving from just doing it paper-based to doing something more digital. So let's go and have a look at a couple of examples that I have made. Now, I'm going to just put it out there. The first one is was created by me, and it does have a few little subtle criticisms of a couple of things. So please, I apologize if anyone's offended, especially if you are down here in Australia, but some of them are thoughts that I have, and one of them is a particular thing that really frustrates me, and it's frustrated me so much in the past week that I've actually talked myself out of subscribing to something because I didn't want to do what is in the next example. So let's go and have a look at 2 examples of positive, negatives, and questions tables to show you what you could do. So I probably, these examples are probably more kind of competent students. If you were doing this with lower students, all right, it might be a bit harder, but you could be talking about, emotions. What are positive emotions? What are negative emotions? What are some questions we might ask when somebody's feeling sad, or what could we do to help people? So there's lots of ways that we could use this. So let's go and have a look at my examples here. Oh, that's a double one. All right, here we go. So the first one here is an example that I just put together just to show you. I live down here in Australia, so we're, an isolated country at the moment with COVID-19, but we are a safe country, which is fantastic. So a couple of my ideas here, my positives, we have a really small population down here, which is great. So we aren't overrun. We aren't, looking for extra space. We're pretty lucky. We've got a lot of space here. We can move around. We're quite free. So that could be something that I take from living in Australia that is quite positive. We also have lots of very unique animals and plants, beautiful animals, beautiful plants. All right. So we're very lucky to have those in this country and to be able to see them all the time. The other one that I've got here, and this is probably one of my favorites, is that we are so lucky to be in the Southern Hemisphere because our summertime, and sorry, I'm filming this in the middle of winter here in Australia, our summertime is from December to February, and it's just at the end of the year. And I like it because we've just finished our school year. So in Australia, our school year runs from late January to about the middle of December. So it actually runs for the year. That doesn't cross years like it does in other parts of the world. So we finish our school year in late December, just before Christmas, and then we don't go back until late January. So we actually have a nice chunk of time there in summer at the end of the year to refresh and regroup and have fun before we head back into the next school year. So that's something that I love, and that's a positive to me. So some negatives. All right, I'm going to start off with this first one. Okay, this one here frustrates me like no tomorrow. And it's one of the disadvantages of living in Australia. It's a pretty expensive place down here. As much as I love living and being an Australian, it is pretty expensive. So if I want to buy something or subscribe to a resource, and I was looking at a resource over the past week, and I was watching our exchange rate to see if it would change, but it hasn't significantly enough to justify me buying that subscription. When I buy something here, obviously I'm paying in Australian dollars, so my money needs to be converted to US dollars, and generally that means that I'm probably paying, $20 to $30 more than the advertised price in US dollars. And it really, really frustrates me because obviously I'm doing this and I'm paying for all of this out of my own money, and I've got lots of other commitments and things I need to pay. So just that little bit of extra money with that exchange rate really frustrates me. So if you are out there in America, please allow us to pay in Australian dollars. I would love that. That would make me so happy. All right, another one I have there. We are so far away from other places in this world, all right? It is so long if we want to travel, not that we're allowed to travel at the moment, but to get to other places, it takes quite a lot of time. If we want to import goods or services, because of the distance, it jacks up the price, okay? So it's a negative of living in Australia. And my last one there, and this is probably my little criticism as well, we're all experiencing COVID-19 throughout the world. Some countries and some people are being vaccinated, which is fantastic because we need to protect ourselves against this disease. But we're actually really struggling down here in Australia, and we actually don't have enough vaccines yet to be able to vaccinate everybody. So at the moment, only a small amount of people have been vaccinated. I am currently not eligible to be vaccinated because I am not within one of the priority groups yet. So it actually makes me a little bit sad that we are kind of falling behind other parts of the world, and we haven't actually made up and managed to do that yet. The problem is that we have to import our vaccine, okay, the Pfizer vaccine. So we, it's complicated, but hopefully that will change, and I'll be able to get my vaccine soon so that I can start to feel a little bit safer in the world with COVID. So they're my positives, they're my negatives that relate to living in Australia or being in Australia. I'm going to go to my questions, and I've just got some general questions here. Some of them are very easy to find, but if I was a student, they might be legitimate. So one of my first ones here: when will Australia reopen its borders to other people from around the world? So when will we start to see other people coming back in to come down and enjoy our wonderful country? Maybe come down and visit me and meet up with me, as that would be fantastic to meet some EdTechers or teachers from around the world. So, obviously that's obviously related to COVID and vaccinations and all kinds of things. So that's a question then. Another question that I have here: climate change. So how has climate change impacted on Australia? So what's changed? All right. Down here, we have a lot of natural weather events, natural disasters. So we might go from a couple of years ago, we had big fires, huge fires. Okay. We might go to floods. Okay. We might have really bad droughts. So how has climate change impacted on the environment down here in the Southern Hemisphere of Australia? Okay, the third one there that I've got is related to a little bit of history, our Aboriginal history here in Australia, our First Nations people. So how long have they lived in the country? How long have they been here for? What would we like to know more about our Aboriginal ancestors? It's wonderful to have them, and I learned so much from them. I've got beautiful Aboriginal colleagues. So, what can we learn about them? And the last one, the fourth one here, is actually a little bit of a funny one. So if you're an Australian and you know about our state of origin, so it's a football match between two of our states, New South Wales and Queensland, that is held every year. They have 3 games. It's a very, it's huge. It's huge. And I feel very conflicted because I was born in Queensland, but I lived most of my life, and I went to school in New South Wales. So the 2 states that compete in state of origin, I have been part of both. I work in New South Wales now. I no longer live in New South Wales. I live in Victoria now, but I still feel that connection to Queensland because I was born in Queensland. But my question that I had here was, why did Queensland get absolutely smashed in the 2021 State of Origin? So we've had 2 games of the 3 so far, and New South Wales pretty much, let's say I don't know where Queensland were. I'm not sure if they were actually on the field playing, but they were absolutely obliterated by New South Wales. So where were Queensland, and why did they get smashed? So you can see that you could have some fun here, okay? It doesn't always have to be serious. Now, you could get your students to complete this individually in pairs. Then you could come together and you could use the sticky notes here and come up with some ideas. So there is an example there. All right, I'm going to show you another one, which is one that actually is including some examples that are from my Year 11 Standard English class. And it's from our recent unit where we looked at the podcast that you may know called Serial. All right, a fantastic podcast. So what I got the students to do is when we listen to episodes, I got them to complete a positive, negatives, and questions table. And then this is where we had the beautiful display in the classroom. And I got them to put on Post-it notes of ideas, one idea from each of those 3 columns. Now, as I was saying, if I was to do this again, I would probably do this as a digital activity and then maybe download them and print them and laminate them so that they were less likely to be damaged by other students. So these examples today actually come from my class. I actually didn't want them to identify themselves because I wanted it all to be completely anonymous so that they felt comfortable to provide their ideas. So all of these are de-identifiable unless the students know who they are and unless they're watching this. Hello, if you are. They do know about this, so because I have let them know about it, so maybe they would decide to watch this. So what I got them to do was actually use different coloured Post-it notes for the different sections so that I could make sure that I knew what Post-it note went with the 3 columns, and I've done the same here to show you what it would look like. So this is after we listened to our first episode of Serial. Obviously, it is the case of Adnan Syed, all right, and the murder of Hae-Min Lee. If you haven't gone and listened to Serial, go and listen to the podcast. It's really interesting. And it was really interesting. I had lots of great discussions. We debated about who we thought was the murderer or who was involved, whether Adnan was it, whether it was Jay, Asia's responsibility, and it was fantastic. It was so great to have a really engaging class. So these are some things and some of the ideas that they came up with together. So you can see some of them are quite complex, some of them are quite simple, but that's okay. That's what makes this activity really exciting and interesting. We don't all have to have long, complicated ideas. We could have very concise, very short ideas. And as I said, I took them all, I actually consolidated them all into a jam, into their own frame so that I could share those with my students. But that's just an example of what you could do with something like this template. Now, obviously, when we create this, we would probably like to be able to share it, especially if we're doing something like this particular template where I want my students to see each other's ideas. So if we head back up to our 3 magical dots here in the top right-hand corner, we can download this as a PDF if we would like to, and we can download each frame as an image, all right? And you can pop it into slides, you pop it into sites, you can pop it into Google Classroom. So I actually created and downloaded these as images, and I actually have a resource hub where I put all of my lessons, all of my resources, my Google Slides for my Year 11 class to access. So I actually downloaded these as images and uploaded them onto that resource hub for them so that they could go and have a look at all of those ideas in their own time, and it was accessible for them. So you can share all of these positive, negatives, and questions tables really easily with your class. So there's just a couple of examples, one from me with some of my personal gripes and personal loves about Australia, and then one here looking at one of my Year 11 English classes and actual examples from my students. So the positive negatives questions table, I love it. I think it's really good. It gets the students thinking, it gets the students sharing. It's just a way to really be collaborative. So get the students to do it individually, in pairs, in groups, and then maybe come together and consolidate as a class to see what ideas you have come up with. Well, that is the positive, negatives, and questions table, which is one of our 20 Jamboard templates in the first e-collection from Evolve EdTech. Thank you so much for sticking with me. This is probably, and I'm pretty sure this is my longest video so far in this series, but I think this is a really cool resource, and I was really excited to actually film this segment. So thank you so much for sticking with us. All right, just before I go, just a reminder about subscribing to our YouTube channel. I would love it if you could come, and if you haven't, please share. And if you haven't already, we are on socials. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram and Twitter. So please come and be social with us and be part of our mission to pay it forward, just like my friend Kim Martina would say, and be part of the Evolve EdTech family. Thank you so much for sticking with me, looking at the positive, negatives, and questions Jamboard template. Hopefully you go out and have a look at it and use it in your classroom and your teaching at some stage. My name is Tristan. I am from Evolve EdTech. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, everybody, stay safe.